Chris, I haven't said morning to you yet. I probably didn't to Ryan either, but whatever.
Good morning.
Abby asked, did you guys receive service for an email or any kind of notice alerting you of the May 14th, 2024 hearing date? Regarding the,
Not aware of.
that was a few days ago.
Right.
Who would have put that out there?
It would have been, I guess it would have come the same way as the other document, just through the mail.
Oh, really? You got it in the mail?
This is the what I sent just now was
Is it scanned?
it's like snail mail. Yeah.
Okay. I don't know.
Some document somewhere. Nobody called me to say, hey, no email, no.
Or
Morning.
morning.
Give a couple of minutes here.
Morning, Jennifer. Morning, Nathan. We know Tom's gonna be a couple minutes late, but who is the last trustee?
We have, we don't have Lauren Woodson,
She wasn't there to come.
Emma, Art, Sherry, Lisa.
Who responded that they were. It's not on the screen.
Yeah, we had 8 yesterday.
Now we have total 1, 2.
Okay, so who is not on the screen right now?
Lauren,
Lauren is not coming.
yeah,
Who is RSVP positively that is not yet here?
everybody else, and Burnett
Okay, thank you.
is in here's RSVP.
Who are the 2 others? I got Lauren, Emma, Melanie, and Art that were known not to come, were known
We
that they will not be here. Who else?
Lisa Carter, Sherry Jordan, Lauren Woodson, Art Evans. The people who did not respond
Okay.
was coordinated.
Mike Phillips is not. Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, let me see here. Mark, we know Tom is going to be joining momentarily. We don't yet have Ann Burnett, who we were expecting. But it's up to you what you want to do. You do not have a quorum right now.
What? Yeah, so let's, I mean, we can go through some of the items on the agenda that don't require a vote, but let's give it like 2 more minutes and see
Sure.
what yeah. Is anybody we should try to call by phone, Joe, do you think?
The only one is Ann.
Yeah.
Oh, gosh. Somehow didn't give Abby the full name, so let me send that over to her.
So we need two more, Joe?
Yes, sir. You have the, by chance, the board roster.
Sorry, folks. I think we'll get started in a couple of minutes, in a minute or so here, and just hope for the best when we have to get down the agenda. Wait for Joe to return. All right, Joe, I think we can go ahead and get started, don't you? Or
Yes, sir.
okay. Welcome everybody to the May quarterly meeting of the Board of Trustees for the Virginia Museum of Natural History. Thank you very much. I'll call the meeting to order and begin to work through our agenda for the day. Abby, welcome. I'd like to start by going straight into the chair's report. Lisa is ill and won't be with us today, but I'll go through the items that she would have gone through today and hopefully do as good a job as she would. But start out with, I think most of you already know that that Dr. Nancy Moncrief has retired after 30 years as curator of mammals, and she's moved to Williamsburg, where she's going to continue studying and writing. And we're going to hear a lot more about the search for her successor, and when we get to the Research and Collections Committee report a little further on today. Just an update on the state budget. Obviously, still not resolved, but we don't anticipate any issues with our overall appropriation, where we believe it still will be slightly more than the current fiscal year was just ending, and accounting for the staff salary increases and fees that we normally see year to year. I think we had good news at VMNH Williamsboro, as the museum was approved to move forward with the next and last phase of the detailed design. And we'll hear more about that from the Williamsboro Advocacy Committee report in a few moments' time. Strategic planning, you'll hear more again in the Strategic Planning Committee report, but we're preparing for an August offsite in conjunction with the board meeting. And obviously we have a need to develop our plan for the next 5-year period, 2025 to 2030, and get that done well in advance of that starting point. So we're ready to go. I think we need to continue to ask ourselves to explore many different initiatives, and both past and future. Obviously, the Cultural Heritage Monitoring Lab and the Biology Lab and the Microscope Lab have been huge and will factor into our future. The growth of our staff and research collection, which has more than doubled since 2010. I think moving going ahead with our branch campus and the state funding going into that is going to play heavily into this plan. We've continued to enjoy growth in our festival business, and that has long-term impacts to our revenue stream. And we're well along. It may not seem like it, but we are. We're well along in the Douglas Avenue building refurbishment, and it's a long-term struggle, but we'll hear about that in the Facilities Committee. But I think we're making really good headway there. We're not the largest museum. We're not the smallest museum, but we're definitely ambitious in what we want to go after. And I think we should approach that strategic planning meeting with that mindset. I'm going to make a few comments from my side as well. You know, I do want to talk about in general what we're going to go through today. We're going to have a staff introduction as we normally do. We're going to go through a deep dive and discussion of the festivals, and I think that's been really exciting for us. We want to announce, obviously, I think some of you already are aware that we've been approved for funding for diversity internships. And, you know, we have two interns starting in the summer of this year from Ridgeway and Rocky Mount, which is really neat. We have sent out to the board recently in the last week, Marcus has circulated a new code of ethics. And I think that is a major step forward. So we're excited about that. So, you know, I want to just preface that's where we're headed in the rest of our time today. And there's a full agenda, but I think we can stay within our time limits today. Joe, any update on attendance by chance?
No, unfortunately, we have not been able to communicate with Ann. So she was the last person who we who had RSVP'd positively, but who is not here.
And Melanie?
She unfortunately, as of Thursday or Friday, had to drop out.
All right. Oh, that's right. I'm sorry. I forgot I had that in my notes. All right. So I think we'll, you know, Joe, I'm not sure. I think we should move maybe on to the treasurer's report and then come back because the other things are requiring votes and motions. So we can have some hope that maybe we get some people in. So Court,
Right.
if you don't mind, we're going to skip over and go into the treasurer's report.
Yeah, that's fine. At some point, though, we'll have to vote on treasurers also
Yep.
for the upcoming thing. Everything is obviously positive. I don't want to step on Ryan, any of his news or anything, but we're seeing a double-digit increase pretty much across the board, which is really good. Number of gifts are up 13% over last year. I know our endowment, we talk about it every meeting. That's pretty cool. We're just over 955,000 on our endowment as of March the 31st, and our general endowment is around 650,000. So we're going to hit that $1 million soon, sooner than later anyway. Grants are coming in really well. Our reptile festival had a record crowd. It beat last year's 2-day record by about 33 people. So we're still breaking records. That was kind of cool. But other than really voting on the budget now, that's the treasurer's report.
Okay. If anybody has any questions as it relates to spending through the third quarter, this would be a good time if we could discuss that.
I'll just add, Mark, that we are getting close to the end of the fiscal year. So, you know, every year we always try to, like, you know, it's almost like backing a semi into a parking space. You know, you want to do it just right. So that way, you know, we spend on what we need to spend without any challenges of overspending. So we don't anticipate any problems, but we start to take precautions. For instance, I approve all individual spending initiatives to make sure that they're in line and they're timely and necessary and so forth. The staff does not have a habit of spending unwisely, but it's just a backup plan to make sure that we're able to kind of thread the needle with our budget here at the end of the fiscal year.
Right. Can we talk a little bit, Jonathan, about some of the numbers on the third quarter report, just so for those that had the chance to go through it? Let me just move over to my notes. One of the things that I wanted to try to get a handle on, because it also goes straight over to the budget as well, is talk a little bit more about, and I know we've talked about this in prior meetings, the overall salary and benefits numbers, because, you know, some of those are trending obviously higher than, let's say, a 3/4 of the budget number would be, and there's always reasons for that. But we're baselining some of our next year off of this year, right?
That's correct. So, looking at this year, we're running a little bit hot, coming into the year. We had some retirements. Obviously you spoke on, Dr. Moncrief earlier, and each of those retirements comes with in her case, a substantial payout. As part of being the state, you get paid for the time you've accrued, leave time, that's all a dollar figure that gets paid out there. We've also added, so this budget was approved prior to the addition of a few staffers, one being Bethany, exhibits coordinator, and then the other being Derek Eames, the sustainability technician, working on getting some training for him. So those numbers kind of add up to the additional funds you'll see in FY 25.
And we also finish the payroll out the next fiscal year.
Correct.
Right, so that's what, it's always inflated, it's never at 75% going into the last quarter, right? It's always in advance of that.
Yeah, so the first payroll of FY 25 will be essentially the last pay cycle of FY 24.
Okay. And if we move to the bottom of the chart, can we talk a little bit about the agency service charges, overages?
Yes, so that is Vita. Vita's always been a constant problem for us. There's no negotiating contract with them. They just come in and tell you how much more the fees are going to be. This year was substantial, more than we had projected. That is, like anything else, they claimed it was inflation. We work with them as best we can to kind of mitigate those cost increases. We've had staffers take on additional roles. Dr. Kuiper's walks around and unplugged computers. We've done our best to keep those costs low, but again, it's just a wild card going in. Really every year they just come, they say, here's the contracted rates. You already have the equipment, you're already contracted into those for 5 years sometimes. So this is what you're paying this year.
And I have brought that up to the secretary's office. So yeah, we made it known that it's difficult to hit a moving target when you project the budget.
Okay, I think that also sort of carries over into the budget. And I'd like to just open up a little discussion on the budget going forward as well, since we're in this section. Ryan, when I look up at the top, and I know we're starting to overcome some of our revenue challenges from just our baseline admissions. But when we look at the fact that we are behind a little bit, and there's good reasons for that, we're still baselining next year off of, I think it's a 12% increase for next year over this year's budget. So it's really the overall year-to-year increase would initially appear to be more than 12%.
Yeah, I'll take that. So looking at the third quarter numbers, unfortunately, this going into the fourth quarter, all the Reptile Fest revenues will be added in. All of the additional revenues from Christy's amazing programs, those numbers will come in. She's breaking all kinds of records. I think she might be just setting the new standard. Store sales as well. So we have the store sales from Reptile Fest. And all that'll pop up and populate during the fourth quarter. So that'll get you closer to this year's forecast. And then of course, we don't want to, level is not where I want to be just in general. We want to reach, we want to make sure we're pushing every year to make sure that we're seeing growth. And then festival over festival, if you look at the revenues there, as far as the store sales go, you're looking at 20% increases in store sales.
Okay, so all I just want to make sure of is as we go through a budget process is that we begin to look at, let's say, a projected full year. Obviously you are doing that, but we don't see that in these numbers, a projected full year for the current year and then the year to come, so that we're explaining those variances going forward in that way, which is what you're doing right now, right?
Absolutely. And you'll put on a footnote for the next board meeting in August. I'll have the fourth quarter numbers for you.
Right.
So, knock on wood, I'm not too far out in left field on the projections. But.
Great. Anybody else have any questions on the financials for the third quarter or at the end of the third quarter or the budget? I don't see any microphones coming off. Okay. Sorry, I'm looking up and down because I got to keep tracking. Somebody's raising their hand. Um, I do want to come back and recognize and ask Bobby Dillon to spend some time talking to us about her role in the fiscal area of the business and working with Jonathan and team. So Bobby, if you would share some insights into your role in the fiscal side and all the tracking of budgets and account management and things, that would be great.
Of course. Hello, everybody. I've had the pleasure of meeting most of you. Those who I have not met, my name is Bobby Dillon, and I'm the fiscal supervisor. I'm going to try to share my screen. All right. So my beginning here at VMNH started in 2017 as an intern, basically just helping around the office. Then I went from intern to part-time, doing the same thing. And then I got lucky enough that the administrative assistant at the time left, snatched her role. And then I was there in that role for about a year. And then in 2019, I was promoted to fiscal technician. And then in 2022, I was promoted to fiscal supervisor, now managing an administrative assistant. My responsibilities are accounts payable, so all the bills that come in, accounts receivable, deposits, petty cash, anything of that nature. Program administrator for our travel card program, basically overseeing employees who have a travel card for business travel. Backup administrator for our purchasing card program. Payroll, very important. Inventory, basically tracking all the stuff that comes in, comes out, gets moved. Taxes as well, meals tax, sales tax, 1099s, credit applications for when we want to set up a direct bill account with hotels or anything of that nature. I have to fill out the credit applications. Surplus property officer, which basically I work with DGS. Anytime we want to get rid of anything, I work with them to sell to the highest bidder. And then petty cash officer as well, overseeing our petty cash accounts. And then the travel coordinator for new hires. So anytime any of the curators come in, I oversee their travel expenses. And if they do get hired, then I process their moving and relocation expenses as well. And in 2023, I'm very proud of this. I became VCA certified, which focuses on small purchase, emergency, and sole source purchasing, as well as e-procurement. The end goal was to be VCO certified, but to receive that certification, you have to be VCA certified first. So in 2024, I became VCO certified, which is Virginia Contracting Officer. It consisted of a 4-day class and an exam on the 5th day. Basically, being VCO certified allows for overseeing projects over $100,000, and basically just says that you understand all the laws, policies, and procedures associated with big projects like that, and the policies and procedures when it comes to competitive bids and competitive negotiations. And then what being here has taught me, it's taught me so many things. Since 2017, I've grown as a professional and as a person with my coworkers and responsibilities. This job has taken me out of my comfort zone and has allowed me to experience things that some people may never see or do. VMNH has given me so many wonderful opportunities, and my boss, Jonathan Martin, that I'll be eternally grateful for. Through this position, I became more communicative, knowledgeable, confident, adaptable, and yeah. Okay, does anybody have any questions for me?
That's wonderful, wonderful, Bobby. I really appreciate the passion you put behind your discussion, and obviously you're also supported by Robin as well as across the teams. So that's really neat. I'm really happy you're enjoying your time with the museum. I'll just say that it's always been Lisa's um, wish that we continue this process of having this part of the meeting, and it will. I think it's a really exciting opportunity for the board, for all the trustees to understand what's going on at every area of the museum. So thank you again, Bobby. Appreciate your time on a Saturday.
Of course, no problem. I enjoyed it. Thank you guys.
And Mark, if I may, if I can
Yeah.
just say really quickly, I used to work in a role very similar to Bobby's. I just want to say thank you because it's the kind of role that is very foundational for an organization. Like people realize when you screw up and when you do things right, it just feels like a normal day. So thank you for what you've done and making it a place that other people can work at and flourish because you do your job.
Oh, thank you so much. I appreciate that.
Great. Okay, thanks, Bobby. Enjoy the
Bye,
rest of your
guys.
weekend.
You too.
We're going to, again, for lack of quorum, we're going to move on to the executive director's report. So Joe is going to take us through his round of many items I see here, Joe.
Yeah, but we also owe you a deep dive.
Yeah. Okay. Do you want to go at that first?
Yeah, we'll just
Okay.
fold it right in. So Ryan and Jonathan and I are taking this deep dive. We wanted to make sure everyone understood what goes into planning our festivals, since they've really become an important part of our operation. As you know, as we're isolated, you can come here during the week, and it's actually a pretty special experience for people because you might be the only family in the galleries and you have the place to yourself. Now, while that's nice, that doesn't do a lot for our numbers, our revenues, and so forth. But the festivals have kind of changed that perspective, and so we describe it as getting this pulsed visitation when we throw these things. So let me just look how we parse this out. So we just wanted to talk about festivals briefly in three terms: the preparation, the needs, and the budget, and how we work all that. So what we stress around here are what we call the 4 Ps in the museum world. We have paint, programs, people, and partnerships. Some of you have heard me talk about that before. So paint just basically means we make the place look different. We decorate. We might not necessarily paint the walls, but it gives us an opportunity to make it a new experience for people. People literally is us putting people on the floor. So this is an all hands on deck kind of thing. Everybody is out from behind the scenes, from curators to, well, our fiscal folks, to our maintenance folks. Everybody's on the floor. Programs, we give people something to do. So these are often very hands-on kind of things, whether they're for children or adults. And partnerships, we invite folks from other museums and from universities and so forth, and we set up stations in the museum that are related to the theme of the festival. So at Reptile Festival, we had some commercial vendors, we had curators with live animals, we had other nonprofits and so forth, and we had curators that actually had some of the specimens that are normally not on display. And people have a chance to ask the same 3 questions over and over again to the people. Did you kill that? Is it real? Why is it dead? Right? We answer those 3 questions about 1,000 times. So, but it's all good. So this represents our needs, and by doing this, it gives people something extra special. I'll just close my part by saying that you've also heard me say in the past that people want 3 times as much stuff to do as it took them time to get there. So as such, since people can go slowly through the galleries, have conversations, and so forth, it really slows down the visitor experience in a positive way, increasing what they're getting for the same membership or the same admission price or the same EBT card through the Museums for All program. And as such, people are traveling much longer distances. I think it was last year or the year before, we showed a heat map showing the distances that people come from: Winston-Salem, Greensboro, Raleigh-Durham, Roanoke, even Richmond. Places like Lynchburg and Bedford are represented. Even Harrisburg, Winchester, and Lexington and Stanton all show up on these maps. So I'll turn things over for the needs over to Ryan.
First, I'm going to unmute. I'm going to share screen real quick. All right, can everyone see the?
Yes.
So, yeah, this is a big picture look at festivals. This is a version that was shared in the last report at the February meeting, but it's since been updated for Reptile Festival numbers. So let me just get by. So yeah, so as far as background, of course, this was a highly strategic initiative, really spearheaded by the trustees in the 2017 strategic planning, retreat. So working with staff, working with the foundation board, we all identified festivals as an area of growth. We've done festivals for a while, but of course they've since grown since we launched this in 2017. So you can see here the growth as far as revenue, but also, like Joe mentioned, partnerships, investments, working with the foundation board, looking at earned revenue. We've had over, just under 110,000 in the last 7 years just for festival support. That's a combination of partnerships, sponsorships, grants across the board. And Joe also mentioned Museums for All, which I know we've talked a lot about. These numbers are updated through Reptile Festival since the launch of the 2017 Science Festivals Initiative. Almost 8,900 visitors have come in through Museums for All. So initially that was a reduced admission program, but it's since through underwriting support from Hooker Furnishings, Carter Bank and Trust, and the Community Foundation serving Western Virginia, it's now a free program. So that's a huge benefit to families really across the region. And it's really great to, if you haven't had a chance to be at admissions at a festival, I really encourage that. You can talk to people, hear their feedback and just the appreciation. So it's really kind of a inspiring program. Finally, I just want to highlight that the foundation board is committed to continuing this program. So whether it's grants, like I mentioned, corporate partnerships, individual support, I think everyone recognizes the strategic importance. And the bigger strategic priority is science outreach, which is, of course, a big reason why we exist. So that's a big picture look. Jonathan, I'll turn things over to you.
I just wanted to underscore something you said, Brian, that we haven't really talked about in a while. The outreach and the learning is, of course, key, and we take that seriously during festivals. Since we theme them to popular themes, such as reptiles and dinosaurs and other things, we've recognized that it becomes almost a gateway to science. I think people find a museum visit much more approachable when we, use this festival model. So we think that's very important. So I'll pass the buck over to Jonathan.
So festivals obviously make up a large part of our revenue for the year. As you can tell, Ryan's numbers will always be better than my numbers because of the strategic partnership with the foundation. Several grants stay on that foundation side and go to pay for a lot of the opportunities that we see at the museum, especially with the outreach that we do. Just aside from the numbers, it is nice to see that the population of Martinsville, Virginia is 13,000. At these festivals, we're serving 10,000 individuals. It's pretty exciting to see. And then 80% of those the exact numbers are from out of town. So we're actually a huge bit of tourism for the area, which really stimulates the restaurants and the local shops, eateries, et cetera. So there's a bigger numbers game at play as far as the tourism goes for the area. But just looking at operationally, thanks to grants and funding from corporate sponsors, roughly the museum spends, you'll see $100,000 right revenue, but we're spending roughly $30,000 to $40,000 a year in costs. So it is a substantial fundraiser for us. It helps to pay for programs, exhibits. Those dollars really go back toward making the organization a better place all around. So not as 4 days a year, but it really does contribute 365. And that's
Okay. Yeah. So we just want to make sure that you understand that there is an upfront investment. There's the big picture items like the tents and everything like that. And we also just want to make you aware that the community is very supportive of us doing this. from the standpoint of people, partners allow us to park in their facilities and so forth. I am a little disappointed. We have just not been able to get the community over the hump to get other, like this, when we throw a festival, we're bringing so many people in. Why the heck aren't restaurants doing special things, and why aren't the other museums doing special things? You know, I don't, you know, I can't do it for them. You know, I'm open to suggestions on how to convince businesses, the uptown, or we have an uptown partnership, right? How come this isn't becoming? How come? When's Dinosaur Festival? July
26th and 27th.
Why is July 26th and 27th not Dinosaur Weekend in Martinsville? Is beyond me. But hey, that's just me. Carol, you have your hand up.
I just wanted to mention, I was listening to you all and thinking again about the multiple levels on which these programs hit. And NSF has just released a call for proposals for something they're calling the science of science, discovery, communication, and impact. And the deadline is the one, well, there's a deadline, of course, in September, always, just a few months away, but there is one in February of 2025. And this is funding that allows organizations who are doing this kind of work to evaluate the way in which they're impacting, but also the way in which they are telling science and basically what they are bringing to the table when it comes to the value of the public value of science. And so I was thinking about this. I was thinking about VMNH when I read this the other day, and it seems to me that in all the many things that VMNH does and has to do, the idea of writing an NSF proposal for something like this may fall down on the list, but at the same time, this could be very advantageous for the organization. And so I'm wondering, and it's not really the research committee because, well, in a way it is research, and in academic terms, we would call this the scholarship of teaching and learning. But basically this, I don't even know where it would fall, but I'm wondering if some of us who are on the board might be able to assist in helping write a grant like this, instead of just expecting that the staff or the administration at the museum would do this. We've not been asked really to do things like this, but at the same time, if we bring this expertise, and as I think I've mentioned before, this business of science telling is something that I do a lot of work in. And so I was just, it just really occurred to me when you were talking, it brought this back up in my mind.
Carol, I might suggest that we, in the near future, have a quick Zoom meeting between you, any staffer that might feel that they could have input, and we get Dr. D.B. Poley and Dr. Lisa Stoneman from Roanoke College. I believe, Ryan, correct me if I'm wrong, I know D.B. rolled off the foundation board. Lisa's still active, if I'm not mistaken, because she came on after D.B.
Yeah.
So anyway, but they have the foundation board and the advisory board connection. And I think this probably would be of interest because it sounds like the kind of scholarly work that DB likes to do at that interface between the biological sciences and the actual learning. So I'll take the initiative to schedule that meeting, and then maybe we can talk about a mechanism going forwards. Thank you.
Joe, this is Nathan. I just wanted to mention, with my very sort of cursory understanding of the way things work in Martinsville, is that you're certainly not the only one that expresses this frustration about the lack of coordination sometimes that happens in the area. I'm reminded of I think something my grandmother told me as a child. Someone can bring you a gift, but you have to actually unwrap it. So like, you're doing all the work. It's not on you to make them try to get a piece of that. So in my mind, you've done what you can. These other ideas, I'm not poo-pooing them. I'm just saying, you know, I wouldn't feel that bad about it, just given the nature of the way things work there sometimes.
It just seems like an unnecessary opportunity lost, you know. But who knows? Maybe someday the light bulb will go off. If we don't have any further questions about the deep dive, it's okay, Mark. I'll just move into executive director's report.
Works good.
Okay.
Hey, Joe, sorry, interruption.
I'm sorry, Mr. Roberto.
That's okay. On your point, I don't know to what extent, and it sounds like you guys are definitely tracking it, and I don't know to what extent it may be on paper. But to your point, you know, having been somewhat in the business at one point, it's always been a disconnect to me in my mind between the museum world and the tourism world and the hotel world and the restaurant world that are all looking for the same goal and benefit from the same revenue opportunities, and yet they don't talk to each other. I don't know to what extent a good letter to the tourism bureau of the county or the area. I mean, this is literally what they get paid to do. If there aren't events going on, they're supposed to try to stimulate some to exist. And to Nathan's point, I mean, you're literally handing them something. All they have to do is basically add to their calendar and try to promote a little bit. So I don't know what the lead times that are required from them to give you some exposure. But you're doing half or 3/4 of the work for them. I don't think it's out of any logical step to request some level of support in getting the word out, if nothing else.
So I will just say before we turn over to Jonathan that Ryan does produce an events calendar well over a year out. So we know what we're doing, 16, 17 months from now. So
Yeah, so just everybody knows Martinsville's a small place. So working with tourism, it's really just one individual spending about 20 hours a week there doing tourism. It's taking really a backseat to economic development. When you say bureau, maybe we could lean up to the state level, but locally, tourism is not necessarily underfunded. It's just kind of it's an afterthought. They do put a calendar together, and they share it on Facebook. As far as funding goes, that avenue, I think Ryan has done a fantastic job working with the state tourism board, and found us some money there. As far as advertising goes, Zach is probably an expert at this point in social media advertising, local advertising. We've gotten on all the television, studio, radio. We really look internally to get the festivals out there, to do the advertising ourselves. To no fault of the tourism office, it's just a few people there working in the area, but we've really looked internally to be our own tourism office, so to speak. And even the tourism group has abandoned their storefront. That's now actually in the museum, just a card catalog of things to do in the area. So if nothing else, the tourism for Martinsville has kind of been shrinking over the past 10 years to the point where we are probably the biggest tourism advertising, and people could come to us, and of course we could tell them how to do it. We can do it for them because of time, et cetera. But we've had to become experts in the area ourselves.
Just sharing your frustration.
Tom, you have your hand up.
Yeah, just back to the topic of festivals in general, and I appreciate how much success you've had delivering them in Martinsville, but I was wondering whether there's any thought to travel with any of these festivals to other population centers, and I know that has implications in terms of preparation, needs, and budget.
Yes, you may recall that during pandemic, we did the experimental drive-through festival here in Martinsville, but we also took it up to Waynesboro. It was appreciated, and of course that was unusual circumstances. And you may recall also just before pandemic in 2019 leading to 2020, we were working with the events folks at James Madison University to bring it up to bring Reptile Festival to Harrisonburg. So I'm not trying to back off of I think it's a good idea, because if we're prepping for one festival, It's a matter of just doing what we already know and moving it geographically. One of the challenges, well, let me back up. The reason we wanted to do Reptile Festival is because we relied so heavily upon outside partners. The partnerships were awesome. They would bring in their live animals. Those were the draw, right? We had live animals as well. So the connection between the two just kind of created that critical mass that people appreciated. Unfortunately, our major live animal vendors, one unfortunately experienced a fire and lost a lot of his animals. And then Ryan, I seem to recall we had another one that, well, we had a retirement, right? So that was the fell out of Luray, who used to bring us cobras. But Ryan, didn't we have another one that also got out of the business, or maybe we shied away from them or something?
So we had a vendor last year who had a lot of stuff, and we weren't exactly sure why he didn't come on board, but we found out he had a mass perishing of reptiles. He wasn't sure if it was some bad food or what. So I think he wants to come back and work with us, but yeah, that was an unfortunate, unexpected, unplanned issue.
So yeah, so the short answer is yes, Tom. I think it would be great. We need to pick the right one. Trying to move Dinosaur Festival would have some logistical hurdles. If we can kind of repopulate those the reptile amphibian vendors and so forth, I think that's our best bet to hit a home run with that. Do we have any other questions? Okay, I'm going to be brief in my director's report so as not to be redundant with the committee reports. I just want to point out that I continue to go out in the community. Various groups around the state ask me to speak to them. They want to know what's going on at the Natural History Museum, and I've actually created a slideshow called "What's New at VMNH." Very simple, but it's actually very exciting. And so I can share the slides with you all if you like. I don't put a lot of verbiage in there, so you're not really going to know what some of the images and so forth really refer to, but I'll share it anyway. But the new things going on here, which build upon the legacy of former and veteran staff, is just a real asset to us. When you look at the new people, if you go over to research and collections, don't forget with Nancy's retirement, Cal Ivanov, who I hired less than 10 years ago, he's now senior curator. We've got a really core group of young talent in education, in exhibits, in research and collections that is really bringing a lot of new perspectives. And that's why these new labs that we've created, from molecular to cultural heritage monitoring and the microscopy lab, just have been doing really well. So they're new perspectives. There's nothing stale about what's going on here. And I'll also have to point out, because we are collections based, there are still, a lot of excitement about new specimens and artifacts, as well as new collections that we've absorbed. That's created a lot of excitement. So that's something that we're really seeing here as a complete asset. Even though I've hired all three of these guys that I'm sitting with, right, except for Marcus, who's just a few months on the job. I mean, these guys are now some of our veteran staffers. Christy and Ryan, man, you guys are the old timers now. So it's crazy to think about. But anyway, I'm just going to go ahead and pass the baton on to Ryan, who will walk us through the advancement report. So Ryan, let me turn it over to you.
All right, thanks, Joe. So before I sort of touch on big picture highlights, I do want to highlight that we have a pending Virginia Tourism Corporation proposal. So the VTC has a new program for festivals and special events. It's the first time they've ever done it, and the governor's office will announce the grants on Monday. So that's going to be for specifically Dino Festival. It's going to involve a lot of partnerships. So it's kind of touches on what we talked about. We're going to work. We have an official lodging partner. Hopefully, if it's approved, we'll have an official restaurant. We're going to work with hopefully Uptown Pinball, which is a local really cool place to visit. We're also working with MHC Tourism. So there's the state tourism office, there's local tourism. So our goal, our sort of push, is to drive forward, bring everyone with us if we need to. If we need to lead the way, we will. So yeah, hopefully good news on Monday with the governor's office. But yeah, that's going to be a first step, hopefully in bringing in partners and community, sort of partnerships. So yeah. I think Cord touched on this a little bit, but through the third quarter, charitable gifts are up. Number of gifts are up 13% over last year. And that's through March 31st, but April is going to be a really good month as well. But of course, it's not reflected in this report. Overall charitable giving is up 218% over last year. And last year was a good year. So that's good news. If you look at combined charitable giving and museum earned revenue, it's up 168% over last year. So a lot of it's festivals, but it's also things like exhibits, it's science, it's education, all the things that we do. Endowment balance through March 31st is up 15% over last year. So Cord touched on the balance there as well. And I just want to highlight as well and sort of thank the board, the Staff Professional Development Fund. That was something that the trustees had pushed for. The foundation board provided the funding, so we had $7,500. And that's all been either used or allocated for this fiscal year. And it's greatly appreciated, both for the trustees and the foundation board. Staff really appreciate it. So in your advancement report on the very last page, I did a sort of a snapshot of the impact, areas of operation that have benefited from those funds. Not only the $7,500 from the foundation, but staff, you creatively came up with additional funds. So we had around $10,300 worth of staff professional development that is not budgeted. It was not part of the state budget, but thanks to the foundation board, of course, the trustees as well. Folks are able to go to conferences, do additional training, really across the board. It's greatly appreciated. I think everyone here, staff-wise, benefited either directly or their staff benefited. So again, thank you for that. Several partnerships either in process or you'll be getting press releases about ones that came in April. We do have one that's pending for the Dominion Energy Charitable Foundation I want to highlight. So thanks to Lisa, I know she's not on the call today, but Lisa was instrumental in getting us connected and sort of helping us out with that proposal. So it's been submitted. We'll find out in September, but it's a $25,000 request for outdoor interpretive signage in Waynesboro. So it's going to be interpretive signage along the Greenway at the South River Preserve. So we're looking at about 7 stations that will not only have the information, but hopefully some 3D printed braille, sort of relief things that people can, look at footprints and different things that we can work with vendors to have a sort of multi-dimensional element. So again, that's been submitted. We'll find out in September. And across the board, we've got several partnerships for education. Christy, we just got a couple approved and we've got more pending, and then working with the curators on various federal proposals. We've got, between the direct funding and the collaborative funding, we've got over 4 million in the works for federal funding. So not all that'll be approved, but hopefully it will, at least a portion of it. Just want to thank the board again for all the support with the staff professional development. I think most everything's been touched on, but I'm happy to answer any questions about the report.
I will say just a note to point out that some of those funds will trickle over. So that's benefits and salary number. So the curators, of course, put forward grants and for research out in the field, et cetera. And some of those numbers will trickle over on that side. But really the foundation and strategic partnership there. The money is in safe hands on that side of things, and never had any trouble funding those projects and moving forward and keeping the money kind of on that side of things for the curators. So all the curators here have a fund on that side of the house, so to speak. I try to stay as separate as possible from it. Obviously, the 2 different pots of money we don't want mixing. But again, just you'll see those numbers, like you're like, where's 200,000 at, where's 500,000 at. That the only portion that we'll see will be the wages of the employees, not the equipment purchased, et cetera. So.
Yeah, it is fantastic. It's like, when you listen to this whole discussion, it's like there's an octopus out there. All those tentacles are going out and grabbing wherever they can grab. And it's getting better and better every year. We're getting more and more opportunities to find additional sources of funds. And a lot of it is just hard work being put in by the team and increasing that network of contacts. Any of us that are doing any of our jobs that we do, we know that we live and die by our network. And I think you guys have done a phenomenal job of continuing to build out that network, but also grabbing hold and pulling it in. So just keep up that great work. It's fantastic. So is that it, Ryan, from your guys' side?
I just want to highlight, Mark, I think you said it well. If we want to do community partnerships, we're going to do them, and we're going to pull people along with us. For example, it's a funny thing. The tourism grant, we wanted to connect with a lodging partner, and folks are just suspicious. They don't understand, why do you want to collaborate? What do we have to pay? We had to convince them, and I had to write the letter for them. We had to do a letter of support. But we'll do whatever. If we want to do community partnerships, we're not going to let outside factors limit us. So
Fantastic. All right. I think without any other comments or questions,
Question?
any other question? Roberto.
I know somewhere along the way we were going to talk about our new code of ethics thing. And I wasn't sure where I could bring it up, but since we're talking about the advancement report, we started expanding the report in there for a while now on including all sorts of demographic levels. The inclusion of a volunteer element in our code of ethics just kind of popped into my mind, and seeing the demographics chart in the advancement report, I'm just wondering to what extent we actually have some of this information for our volunteers. If we're going to expand our kind of ethical umbrella to volunteers, and in the language we talk about both paid and unpaid staff, quote unquote, then to what level are we? What are the demographics of our ongoing volunteer workforce that comes to us? Because sometimes they're actually representing and mirroring the people we serve just as much, or sometimes more than what we're able to get on staff. So just throwing it out there. See, I don't know if we track that now, or that's something we want to think about. But there's a number of levels there that, if we're actually doing it, we might as well be taking credit for it.
Good. Thank you for that, Roberto. All right. I'm getting with Joe out of the room. He's busy trying to get us a quorum on the side. So, Tom, can we just move on to facilities, and we can pick back up with the agenda elsewhere?
Sure. We did meet as a facilities committee this morning, and Mark and Jennifer joined me as trustees, and then we had a bunch of staff, and Abby was there as well. Of course, we have lots of facilities to consider. The main one is the one on Starling Avenue. You may have seen in Joe's executive report some of the summaries of things that have been going on in facilities, but just to repeat, it's starting to show its age, and so one of the things we've had to do is invest in some water pumps, and those have been replaced, and Jonathan let us know that there'll be about a 2 to 4 year payback period on those, and we're looking at probably an HVAC overhaul at some point in the near future as well for Starling Avenue. You've been following along probably with the education pavilion as well. The construction is underway, but we're in about a 2.5 week delay for materials, but that appears to be on track otherwise, is what Tim tells us. Regarding Douglas Avenue, Joe mentioned that we're trying to use that for collections, and that means that we've had to do a lot to organize it, to clean it up. Tim mentioned that there's been some vandalism to the building, so they've added some cameras, and that they're in the middle of now cleaning it up to get it broom ready for our accreditation. Obviously, that'll be part of our accreditation review as well, and cleaning up that space will make more room available for collections. as well as our library. You may know that the library space was taken over by the Early Childhood Learning Center, largely because it wasn't seeing enough use. And since it was underutilized, we decided to move it to Douglas Avenue. That hasn't happened yet, but we're going to be in the process of doing that. And that space then, of course, is now replaced by our, what we now call Young Explorer Center in Starling Avenue. The other facilities that we have are some of our remote locations, like the trailer that we have in Waynesboro. Of course, we inherited that from the Virginia Museum of Fine Arts. You'll remember that it needs some repairs, so we did get an approval in the most recent budget, which I think is in the process of being signed, if it hasn't already been signed, to use maintenance reserve funds for upgrading that trailer. We are staffing it now with volunteers, so it's open on Saturday mornings during farmers market to let people know about the museum and the potential move to Waynesboro as a campus. And I think that's pretty well it, unless there's any questions.
Any questions for Tom? Okay, I'm going to move on to Nathan next in education and public programs. Nathan?
Yeah, good morning, everyone. The committee met on Thursday afternoon. Unfortunately, last minute I was not able to attend, so I've asked Christy to share with us some highlights.
Great. Thank you, Nathan. Good morning, everyone. During our meeting Thursday, we reviewed our quarterly numbers. For the third quarter, we reported 291 total programs, and with those serving 5,414 participants. So it was quite a busy time frame. And so I highlighted some of our programs for that reporting time. And so we held a Project Learning Tree environmental education workshop. This was geared for formal and informal teachers. And so we had 15 teachers participate. It was an all-day workshop in which they became certified and received a really wonderful environmental ed curriculum book, basically, that has over 30 activities. They're all vetted activities correlated to the state standards. So ready for them to go.
Christy?
Yes.
Hey, I'm sorry to break in, but fortunately we have Lauren Woodson.
Yes.
So she has stepped away from her activities to join us, and Mark, your businesses that for the trustees is to call for a vote on the next fiscal year budget, and then you'll have to read the slate of officers and follow the script that I gave you. Hi, Lauren. Thank you.
All righty. So first of all, let me move back to my paper here. So I'd like to have a motion to approve the financials for the third quarter of this year, of fiscal year. Can I get a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Thank you. And a vote. Those in favor, raise their hands, or
Aye.
we got it? Any opposed? Okay. Move on now, and can we vote to approve the proposed budget for fiscal year 25? Can I have a motion for that?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
And those in favor, approve? Any opposed? Okay. All right, Joe, let me move to the next one. We're going to call for the nominating committee and work on the election of officers for fiscal 24 and 25. Melanie had prepared a slate of nominations with the committee, and let me see if I can find the slate here. Joe, I may need your help.
That's fine. With your permission, I'll read the proposed slate of officers for next fiscal year 25. That would be Mark Fuss as chair, Melanie Clark as vice chair, Cord Cothran as treasurer, and Lauren Woodson as secretary. And this would then make Lisa Carter immediate past chair. And now you would have to.
Right, yep. Are there any other nominations for from the floor? You seeing that there's no other nominations, I'd like to call for a motion to approve the slate.
So moved.
And a second.
I'll second it.
Is there any further discussion? Okay, seeing that there's no further discussion, all those in favor, please say aye or raise your hand.
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, the motion is carried. Thank you. Appreciate that. And is Lauren going to have to slide out here, Joe?
Yes. Yeah, she was kind enough to slide out of her current activity and join us for a few minutes.
Okay, you got 2 minutes, Lauren?
Yeah, I can stick on a couple more minutes. I'm sorry, you guys. I appreciate your willingness to.
Okay, Joe, can I go through those other 2 issues that need to be approved?
Yeah, sure, we can move to those.
Okay, so based on the last vote of the nominating committee, thank you very much to the board. I want to read a resolution for that we'd like to put forward as a board and have a vote on that. Whereas Lisa Carter was chair of the Board of Trustees of the Virginia Museum of Natural History from 20 to 24. And Ms. Carter led the board during many museum enterprises meant to further our understanding of the natural and cultural heritage of the Commonwealth. And whereas Ms. Carter guided the museum staff in new grant funding, advocated for, gave advice regarding and the initiation of a diversity internship program, whereas Ms. Carter provided expert guidance on the museum green energy initiative, and where Ms. Carter provided constant support while the board and staff designed, executed ambitious plans to foster science and science education across the Commonwealth. Therefore, be it resolved that the Board of Trustees of the Virginia Museum of Natural History hereby expresses its appreciation and admiration for Ms. Lisa L. Carter's leadership and dedication as the museum's board chair. Done this 18th day of November in Martinsville by the unanimous vote of the Board of Trustees of Virginia Museum of Natural History. Can I have a motion to approve this resolution, please?
I motion.
Second?
Second.
All in favor? Thank you. I have one other one quickly I'd like to do. It's actually jumping the gun on another discussion, but we talked briefly before about the retirement of Dr. Moncrief, and I'm going to steal a little bit of thunder, Ben, sorry, but we have proposed a change in the status of Dr. Moncrief as she retires, and I want to read through that proclamation. And so, whereas Dr. Nancy Moncrief was curator of mammalogy of the Virginia Museum of Natural History from 1989 till 2024. It produced numerous contributions to the study of mammals of the Commonwealth of Virginia. Dr. Moncrief's work has been recognized and awarded nationally and internationally. Whereas Dr. Moncrief engaged in numerous public programs, field trips, student engagements over the years, furthering the museum's mission of science and literacy. And whereas Dr. Moncrief was an asset for many exhibits, ranging from the museum's long-term galleries to the Science of Flight and Cats exhibit. Whereas Dr. Moncrief established, grew, and cataloged significant mammal connections, including study skin, skeletal, and genetic resources for the Commonwealth. Therefore, be it resolved that the Board of Trustees of the Virginia Museum of Natural History hereby expresses its appreciation and admiration for Dr. Moncrief's many accomplishments and grants her the status of Curator Emerita of the Virginia Museum of Natural History this 18th day of May 2024 in Martinsville by unanimous vote of the Board of Trustees. Can I have a motion to approve this?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Approval? Vote on that, please. All good. Thank you very much, everyone. So that's all the votes we had, Joe, wasn't it?
Yeah, the other things are much more trivial and can be
Yeah.
taken until August.
Yeah, we can cover those later. Okay, those were the key ones. Lauren, thank you for sliding on.
Sure.
Appreciate it.
Sorry, I can't stick around the whole
No,
time.
we
I appreciate you guys' patience with me.
We understand.
Thanks,
Thank you
Lauren.
very
All right,
much.
thanks. Bye, you
Thank
guys.
you, Lauren. Thank you, Joe, for getting that pushed in. Okay, so
That drives me.
so sorry, I grabbed a little bit of the thunder of Ben, but for our research and collections today, Art Evans is out in the field with Cal Ivanoff doing some collecting across the country. And if you follow on Facebook the exploits of the museum, if you don't, you should. You would have seen some great photographs of them out and about in different areas, and it's really great to watch. So, Ben, can you bring us up to date on research and collections?
Certainly, be happy to. So I will be your ersatz Dr. Art Evans today. Appreciate you giving me the opportunity to speak, and also appreciate you all approving Nancy's status as curator emerita. We're all, certainly going to miss her here. She has been just an invaluable member of the team and certainly an invaluable help to me. So I know it came up earlier, Mark, the question of the next curator. That is still a work in progress. I can say that having spoken to research and collections, the ask we are going to make, or the person we're going to look for, is going to be some sort of vertebrate biologist, whether this is another mammologist or maybe even an ornithologist, is to be determined. But as with anything, any hiring here, we're looking for the best person for the job, whatever the specifics of that job may be. So, we're still working on putting together the ask for that to submit and see who we find. And but I'll move on. I'll just highlight a few things from each department. So as mentioned, Cal and Dr. Art Evans are in Texas. They are thankfully not in the portion of Texas that's been hammered by storms. They're a little bit further south, doing some collecting. Said definitely check out Facebook and see some great photos of some of the scorpions and tarantulas and whatnot they're encountering in the field. One of the big things this past quarter in entomology, in addition to that, we received two massive collections. We received from VCU's Rice River Center an insect collection of almost 5,500 pinned and pointed specimens. And we also received from the Department of Conservation and Recreation 20,000 bee specimens. So these are specimens that represent pretty much the entirety of Virginia's bee diversity, which is, an increasingly important thing in this day and age, since bees are sort of at the forefront of the attack. Let's see, come back to Hayden here. Dr. Adam Pritchard has a very exciting project that he is working on. He was approached by UC Berkeley. Their Museum of Paleontology is putting together a massive publication. There'll be a review, essentially, multi-chapter volume describing the entire Triassic reptile fossil record of North America. And Dr. Pritchard is going to be leading the chapter on trypanosaurs, which are these very strange arboreal Triassic reptiles. And he's also going to be contributing to a chapter on Tannytrachelos and Mechistotrachelos. And Dr. Pritchard is essentially our nation's leading authority on trypanosaurs. He would be too modest to tell you that, but I'll tell you for him. He is just top of the class when it comes to those. So,
and just as a clarification, the taxa that Ben is referring to, the Tannytrachelos and Mechistotrachelos, they're local here. We basically have the corner in the market on these fossils. One's an arboreal lizard relative that we dug up about, how far is he? 15 miles? 20 miles? It's like 15, 20 miles to the east of here. And we've also, in that same dig, recovered 4 specimens of Mechistotrachelos, which is a gliding reptile, which is very unique. and so forth. So this publication is going to really shed some light on these specimens that are pretty well Virginia Museum of Natural History icons.
Absolutely. Moving on to herpetology, Dr. Ariana Kuhn has been doing a bunch of field work this past quarter. February, March is the ideal time for salamanders, so she's been doing a lot of that, but she also found time to spend 2 weeks in Madagascar. That was a collaboration with the Field Museum. They were exploring lowland rainforest habitat in Mantadia National Park with 6 grad students. Just really exciting trip, really cool thing for us to be linked to. And I'll close out with archaeology. Hayden and Maddie Bassett and the rest of their team from February into May did a statewide map of native plant and animal species found in prehistoric archaeological sites. So this is a really cool project. Basically, they were taking biological remains found in midden pits and trash pits in these indigenous sites, and they're seeing, what can we identify this to species? Can we identify this plant to species, this fish, and so forth? And not only does this tell us more about what people were eating hundreds of years ago in these communities, but they're actually working with the Department of Wildlife Resources to expand historic range maps. They're finding that several species were actually found in different areas than we had previously thought. The most exciting of these to me is they actually found skeletal remains from the ivory-billed woodpecker. If you're a birding buff, this is the most famous North American bird, either extinct or critically endangered, depending on how optimistic you are. But they found skeletal remains which represent the northernmost remains found, and probably the northernmost extent of the range known thus far of the ivory-billed woodpecker. So just a lot of very exciting stuff happening in research and collections. We are certainly going to miss Nancy, but in the meantime, the work continues apace. So, thank you.
Thanks for the leadership there, Ben. Appreciated. Christy got cut short. Let's get back to Christy to finish up. Sorry, Christy.
Hey, no problem. Just a couple of other things that we highlighted during the education committee, along with the teacher workshop. During the reporting quarter, we worked with Danville City Schools. We had every single 5th grade class in Danville City visit the museum. And so they were able to visit the exhibit areas, but also work with the educators with 2 different programs, one being in the microscopy lab, identifying different rock samples. And so I just spoke with their curriculum coordinator, and we have lined up their visit dates for the next school year already. So looking forward to that. Great partnership with them. We also mentioned our upcoming summer camp. So right now we are kind of wrapping up the school year programming and then switching gears for our summer programming. We will have 4 summer camps throughout the summer. Registration is going very well for those. We also work with various other summer groups, such as libraries with their summer reading programs, and then also after school providers. So YMCAs, Boys and Girls Club, our local MHC, Martinsville Henry County After 3. So we already have a program scheduled with all of those program sites. So looking forward to a very busy summer. That was kind of a quick overview of what we covered. Thank you.
Thank you. And apologies to the group for chopping and changing there. But thank you, Christy, for finishing that up. Can we move on? Unless there are any questions for Christy? There's a lot of activity there. So any other questions? Great. Okay, Tom, back to you and our friends in Waynesboro.
Sure, thanks, Mark. The Waynesboro Advocacy Committee has been active. We've had 3 meetings. We meet monthly. And I think last meeting we had, I gave you an update on what the General Assembly has done. Of course, we did not get the construction funding for the campus in Waynesboro, but I think, had a good experience with the General Assembly, getting the idea out there. And I do have a recommendation, which we won't be able to act on today because we don't have a quorum. But there's some summary in the minutes. Of course, Mark and Carol and Leanne serve on that committee with me, together with representatives from the community and many of our staff. I don't have a lot. We did have a lot of, as I mentioned earlier, we had the outreach trailer open during Riverfest. We had 500 people visit it, and we have it now open every Saturday morning. The foundation, thanks to the foundation, recognized the Center for Cold Waters Restoration, which has been an active partner in the community of Waynesboro, as well as Senator Hanger for his efforts. And we continue to engage with the community through the science speaker series at the Wayne Theater. Our last science speaker was in April, and the topic was on wildfires, which was very current. And I think there was a lot of interest in that. And of course, anybody can go back and view those videos, taped lectures in the museum's YouTube site. So I'd encourage you to do that if you're interested. We'll pick up that series again in September. I don't know if it makes sense to read the recommendation into the minutes, even though we can't act on it.
Why not, Joe?
I think it's wise to put it out there for consideration, and then we can vote on it another time.
Yep.
Okay, and it regards our relationship with the city of Waynesboro and advocating on behalf of the city and the museum for this campus. So I'll just read it as stated. That VMNH be prepared to again work with the city of Waynesboro to hire McGuire Woods, representing the city, to assist and advise us with advocacy in the General Assembly for construction funds for the VMNH Waynesboro campus. And I've shared that exact verbiage to Marcus already, so he can capture it in our minutes, and then we'll, I guess, vote on that in our next meeting when we have a quorum.
Yeah, the timing should be okay, Tom, because the foundation board meeting meets after the Board of Trustees next meeting.
Sounds good. And just as justification, the foundation does have funds to do this for this purpose. And so it will go to the foundation to actually take the action. But I think our support of that would be helpful in their actions. We, of course, had great experience in the General Assembly. Even though we weren't successful in getting the construction funding, I think McGuire Woods really helped us make the connections we needed to, not only with legislators, but with staff in Richmond. And that's all I have, unless there's questions.
Any questions for Tom? Okay, I'm going to switch over to report on the Strategic Planning Committee. And I think we mentioned up front, but the key issue for the Strategic Planning Committee, obviously, is the upcoming report and plan we have to put together for the 2025 to 2030 time period. And based on prior discussions amongst the trustees, we felt that it was a great idea to put together another, say, retreat, a discussion which would focus solely on the 5-year plan. And so we plan to have that in conjunction with the next board meeting on the 9th of August. It will be held at the Danville Science Center. And we're going to be making some adjustments to the schedule for that. It's slated, the entire project of board meeting plus the strategic planning meeting is scheduled to go from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. The plan is that we would provide well in advance of the meeting a board packet with an abbreviated board agenda, still getting all critical things put together, but really have an abbreviated board meeting, half an hour, 40 minutes if needed, and get through whatever we have to vote on, and then move straight into the strategic planning piece of it. I think we'll be making a pretty hard push amongst the trustees for involvement and assurance of attendance at this meeting, so that we can really get together and put our thoughts on paper. To that end, we have contracted the use of a facilitator. Tala Hodges is the Director of Communications at the Harvest Foundation, and she brings a diverse background in higher education, public information, foundations, and has worked with organizations such as ourselves. I think she'll be a fantastic addition. She's used to working with staffs and boards of directors, and has most recently worked in the communications at Patrick Henry Community College, and with its own foundation. So, and she's got a newspaper editor background, a reporter and editor background. So I think she's got an interesting approach, and we look forward to working with her to help foster a discussion amongst board members. I think we'll be asking for people to spend a little time thinking about it before they get in there. And I'm going to have a chat with her. Joe and I are going to have a chat with her and see if we can just get our arms around the general direction she would go in. And if there are things that she feels it would be good to share with the board before then, just so that we can put our mindsets in the right direction, understand how that discussion will be fostered, then I think it would help to move that meeting along really nicely. So looking forward to that. Please, Marcus has worked hard to try to put this thing together with Joe and the team. They have a hotel identified for those that need to come in beforehand. So please make sure you get with Marcus and schedule your time for that. And please try to do your best to put this on your calendar to attend. So I think that's really all I've got. In terms of the strategic planning committee, we will have foundation involvement at this event as well. So we really look forward to working with everybody and putting together a fantastic plan for the future. So that's it for me. Joe, is there anything else on that subject that I might have missed, or does anybody have any questions on the strategic planning?
We'll make sure that we get the RSVP out there very quickly, and we already have a block of rooms set aside for everyone who would like to stay in Danville.
If I could ask for Bobby's sake, who we heard from earlier, we got the state rate for those rooms, so if we could get 2 weeks notice, at least 2 weeks out from the actual meeting, that's what they're asking for as far as reservation times. So to, of course, not have to pay for them.
Right, and I think we've been talking about this for some time. So I don't think it's any surprise to anybody that this is what we were planning to do. So I look forward to everybody's involvement and great new ideas. So thanks for that. Let's move on to Roberto, and maybe Roberto talk a little bit about the reaccreditation committee.
I did have one question about the meeting, and if you could please remind us, because I'm getting a little foggy in terms of the next two meetings and the timeline for the annual review of our executive director. And I'm just trying to remember how much time we may need in the next meeting as opposed to the following meeting to ensure that we have a robust and
yeah, I think that's a good
conversation.
Great point, Roberto. Thank you for that. And we had talked about this at our executive committee meeting yesterday. It is super important that we get that review process done at the August meeting. And so I think we'll be able to put that time together. We may be doing a better job together as a board of getting that information and surrounding questions out and about in written form beforehand, so that we can get that feedback back and then be able to go through the issues a little bit quicker. I think it really, the August meeting is going to require trustees to really look at their mail and read through documents, both on the executive director's review and on the board meeting components, to really spend some time with it beforehand. And I think if we can get that kind of assurance, then we'll be able to do justice to Joe's review and the board agenda. Does that make sense?
And please just remember that, when we put down on the schedule that the approximate 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. timeframe is not written in stone. If you feel, say, necessary to start at 9:30, so that way you can get through the consent agenda and my eval, and leave a full session available, including a working lunch for strategic planning, we can do that.
Yeah, I think in general, as we send out the invite, without objection, I think we should tell people to plan that. We'll do our best to meet the time period, but the topics at hand are so super important, both to the current and the future, that we really need, a few extra hours of their time on that day. So, if we need to extend it, Joe, I think we can.
Yeah, I'm just remembering the last retreat we did. I don't think in that location we did a closed session, and it wouldn't have been a little difficult considering the outdoor patio that we used. So I don't know if this location affords itself to a enclosed, closed session kind of privacy. What level of privacy we'll have. So I don't know. I'm just throwing it out there.
That's an excellent point.
You'll have a facility like our lecture hall.
Okay. Good. Thank you for that, Roberta. That's a good point.
Before I forget it, one more question. If we're going to have any committee meetings, will there be space available for that, either earlier that morning or perhaps a previous afternoon?
I already have on the schedule the executive committee meeting the day before at 3:30, as per usual. So it's up to committee chairs to decide when and if they're going to meet. And if you want to, certainly reach out to us. We can make sure spaces and or other resources are lined up for those committees.
Will do. Thanks.
Okay. All right, Roberto, to you. Any other questions on strategic planning? Okay. Roberto, thank you.
There's not a lot to say. We have not met as a committee, but as you saw in Joe's ED report, there's a lot of work going on in the background with staff, putting together all the pieces, assembling all the documents, looking over all the policies and procedures that need to be reviewed and updated. I think in a different session, I probably would have had even less to say because Joe would have had the ability to chat a little more on it. But considering our abridged version here, if no one has any questions, it's just going along. It's kind of a TurboTax automated process, as I've mentioned in the past. And when it's time for us to weigh in, we'll have lots of reading material to look over as a committee, and hopefully get as many other board members involved as well to review it and approve it once it's all said and done. But the templates from AAM are out there. It's just a matter of Joe and his staff ensuring that we do our term paper as best as we can.
Yeah, a lot of it is, like Roberto said, it's I don't want to call it automated, but we do have to enter in narratives and information as requested. And I think I did share the link to the narrative that they supply us. And if you don't have that and want to take a look at it, please just let me know. All that said, some of the documents and so forth aren't to be uploaded until right beforehand. That would include most current look at our finances. Would be a good example of that. And hopefully by November, we of course will be submitting the current strategic plan, which goes through 2025, because that will still be valid when we submit. But the goal again is to go through the strategic planning process and at least have a kind of preview of where the board is looking to go with the 2025 to 2030 strategic plan. So, Roberta will be reaching out very shortly about scheduling a reaccreditation meeting with your committee, probably for June.
Okay,
Couple
I'll grab you offline due to some travel things, so.
Okay.
Just coming back and revisiting a couple of things quickly on the agenda. Obviously, we'll have to come back and vote on the minutes in the next meeting. We also talked briefly that Marcus had sent out a code of ethics discussion document, and I made a couple of changes to that. I think myself and Roberto, and so I think Marcus will. I saw that you sent it back out. I don't know if it went to the full board or not, Marcus. But if so, we'd like you to have a look at that. The only changes that we recommended, I think, between Roberto and myself were including a DEI and a comment in the document, and then just taking another quote out of our charter and putting it in the front end as well. So just so that we reinforce the document back to the code of Virginia. So so we can get that resent out and be ready to vote on that. Did anybody else have any comments about the code of ethics or any other suggestions?
We got some editorial comments from Tom, and those have been incorporated.
Good. Awesome. Thank you for that. Okay. Is there any new business? I did give the wrong date for the next board meeting. It was the executive committee's on the 9th, but the board meeting's on the 10th. So it will be Saturday, the 10th of August, 2024. Excuse me for that. And any new business, any other discussion points? Joe, if not, I think we can start moving.
Well, Abby is going to walk us, since we've kind of encountered this issue of electronic communication and voting and so forth. We're going to give her a minute to kind of review some of the policies so we can be better prepared in the future.
Yep, thank you for that.
Hi guys, good morning. Thanks for this on the fly opportunity. I appreciate it so much. Also, just to kind of put it out there, oftentimes for board retreats annually, our office often just reviews all the general open meetings, FOIA, records, all that stuff. So if that's something you guys do want to do at your retreat, certainly am more than willing to come and just kind of do, a 30-minute presentation and just kind of a reminder of all of those guidelines. So just to give you like 3 minutes or less on electronic meetings in 2022, FOIA updated its policies, and you guys have reviewed and added into your bylaws an electronic meeting policy, which is why we're here. That electronic meetings policy is found at 2.2-3708.3. And in those electronic meetings, it allows for you to have either 25% or 2 completely electronic meetings per year. So the catch we're having this morning, it requires a quorum online, and it requires that you do not have a physical quorum of more, or a physical group of more than 2 present in one place, unless that place is also open to the public, which is probably common that it would be. And when we do a vote, there was original requirements for online voting was that there would be a roll call vote, because sometimes electronically you want to see, you want to hear the name, and then you want to get it clear in the records. That has recently changed, like in the past couple months, and I can give you some updates on that in August. But when we vote online, the goal is seeing you lets us know that you're a real person, you're not a fake robot. And when you vote, hearing your voice is preferred. Hand raising is fine because we have a visual. If there are AV concerns and considerations, and this is kind of where we fell a little bit uncertain this morning, and because the law is so new, can somebody call in if they cannot access the Zoom link? I think the default answer is yes, and I can confirm that on August 10th, but there's really no language in the code that requires, it prefers face-to-face, a better practice is face-to-face, but if you can't get in there and you can't see it and your electronics don't allow you to do it, I think that there is still some room for you to call in so that we can get that quorum. So I don't know, Joe, if there was anything else you kind of wanted me to tap into this morning, or if you guys have any quick questions on that, but I don't want to take up too much of your time, but quick overview on electronic meetings.
No, thank you. That's excellent. And that helps refresh our memories for sure. And I'll get with you and Mark. We'll decide if with the retreat, if the August board meeting is a good spot for a review of FOIA and board meetings, or we could also push that to the November board meeting as well. So be based on that discussion. So thank you.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks, Abby. Really appreciate that.
Of course.
Okay, I think that's all we have for today, unless I hear differently from the room of people at VMNH. And if not, I will take a motion to adjourn. Anybody want to make a motion to adjourn? Okay, there you go, Corey. Thank you. Second.
Second.
All right. Thank you very much, everyone. I appreciate your time today. I really appreciate the participation, and look forward to seeing you all in August and talking to you a few times before then.
All right. Thanks, Mark. Thanks, everybody.
Okay.